Now, our next guest is a graduate of the Long Beach Theater Guild, was in many plays of the Long Beach Theater Guild. Let's bring up Double M, Mary Malloy.
Hi, Howie.
You have a guess?
Yes, in a minute.
All right. First of all, Mary, does that bring back fond memories, seeing a couple of young girls from the Guild just knock it out of the park like that?
It did, only I didn't sound quite as good as that. I was young at 35 years old when I started. But yes, I was with Long Beach Theater Guild before Island Park Theater Group. So I've been in many plays, and this is a hard thing to do. But you're absolutely right. They have a love for it, and it really shows, and it comes through with their acting and their. What I love about it, you know, it's funny because my segment is called Sensational Seniors. What I love about the theater is you become friends no matter what age you are. You could be 6 years old or 60-something years old, and you become friends, and you really all become equals.
Well, you know, folks, Mary and I, she's been on our show several times, and her passion for Miss New York Senior America came through, and I kept saying to her, Mary, having you on once in a while just doesn't cut it. I want you on every week because you have such a passion for promoting great things that seniors are doing. And one thing I can't wait for is when you run the seniors dating game. That's going to be wild.
Oh yeah, yeah. I hope to be the bachelorette, if you can call it that, at 63 years old. But yeah, we have plans to do the senior dating game. And we were going to do This Is Your Life, but we didn't want to give anybody a heart attack with that, so we're running through. Tonight I actually have a serious topic. Okay. You should have been here last week. I was funny, but this week it's also important if I could go right into it. Okay. Absolutely. This week I really wanted to discuss a little bit, just a few minutes, before I bring up my guest, my special guest, who I'll tell you about in a moment. But I was reading a little bit in, I don't know if any of you started getting AARP, because I think you just turned 50 and you start getting that in the mail and you're like, what the heck is going on? I'm not old, why am I getting AARP in the mail? But I really started to think, I found my career at, in my mid-40s. I was 46 years old. I had a lot of jobs before that. I stayed home with the kids for quite a few years. But I didn't really find my passion until I was in my 40s, which you can do also. But then I retired and found it very difficult now to even freelance, to even get a job and getting my applications out there. And I was wondering why that was, because I had so much experience. But what I found out was, and as AARP says, and I'm going to quote from them, age discrimination is alive and well in the digital age, despite 50-year laws intended to protect Americans. And one recent study, one of the largest of its kind, they sent out 40,000 resumes to apply for 13,000 jobs posted online in 12 cities, and to test for age discrimination. And they found out that they had the same experience, but they changed the age on different ones. And even though they had similar skills, the older candidates were receiving far fewer callbacks than the young or the middle-aged candidates. So, somebody said, it's just age, it doesn't have to do with experience. And a younger friend of mine, in her 20s, she said, well, maybe the older generation should like start retiring sooner so we could get the jobs that are out there. And I said, well, how? How are we going to do that? You know, I'm not here to answer the questions, but I could tell you from this side of it, it's difficult. It's difficult getting a job. And what I wanted to say to people who are out there hiring, that you should look at everything. Look at not only the requirements and the skills, but the experience. Your experience counts for so much. It should count for much more, I think, in this day and age than it does. I've had experience in the workplace, kind of being pushed down or gently nudged a little bit. They changed the skill set of what you need after so many years. And they do want to make way for younger people, but it kind of leaves a very iffy, maybe between 50 and 70 of people who still have to work and want to work, but it's difficult getting a job. So what I'm saying is, to anybody hiring too, I may as well, do this a little bit. Just consider everything. Consider everything, and don't eliminate anybody for experience or even lack of experience if you believe they'd be a perfect fit for your company. And see, I got through that without making too many jokes there, but I would like, having said that, I would like to invite up my guest, Delores Hoffman. Delores is an Island Park girl. Come sit over here. Now, the reason I had her come up a little bit later, because Delores Hoffman and I, we met through Miss New York Senior America. As a matter of fact, Delores was the queen for 2016 for New York State. And she went to, yeah, great. She was our queen for all of New York. She went to Atlantic City to compete with the queens in Miss Senior America contest. Now, I said she's an exception because, well, this is one thing Delores and I have in common, and all of Miss Senior America have in common. We tell our age because it's vital and it's important. So you are?
71, 2 days ago.
2 days ago. Just celebrate her 71. This is what you want to be when you're 71. I'll just talk a little bit about her. She has worked at JFK Airport for 51 years. Okay, so she found her you can plug. She found her passion early, and they were lucky to have her. She was recently named in the Airport Voice, which is this, as a woman of achievement. Okay, we'll open that up there a second. Sure. And she landed her current position as program manager for the Queen's Air Service Development Offices 27 years ago. Now, this is the exception to the rule, and Delores is always the exception to the rule. And here she is featured in the Airport magazine. She's JFK's Woman of Achievement. Now, 27 years ago, there was an opening in her department, and she was accepted over 3 gentlemen, and the requirement was to have a master's degree. She did not, but they looked at her lifetime work experience and hired her, and that was 27 years ago, and she's doing wonderful. She's won so many awards. Pan Am Museum's Foundation Hall of Fame for being, I'm going to let you talk right after this, because there's so many awards and so many things to go through. She's known as the airport matchmaker. But I'm going to mention one thing, and I'm going to ask her to start like way back when. Delores was the airport's first female forklift operator to unload trucks at JFK. When all the men were doing it, Delores was the first woman to do that. I think that deserves an applause for that.
It was a challenge. I actually was part of the Teamster Union, and I started with Pan American World Airways as a clerk, and I grew into a position of secretary, and I was a political leftover when my boss left, and the gentleman who took over that position, it wasn't a happy situation. So being a Teamster, Pan American way back then, you went to the bid board and you bid on positions, and there were no administrative or office positions available at the time. So I kept watching every day. 3 months later, a position came up, 6 positions as cargo service agent. So I bid on it, and I was actually I was the senior bidder. However, they put me through a 3-hour physical to try to find something the matter with me, to say your physical stature is too weak. A vice president said to me that you'll never be able to have children, you'll be the laughing stock of the airport, etc., etc. And I said, you have to give me a chance, and they did. And I have to tell you, I embarrassed more men into doing more work than you could possibly imagine. My sweetheart, my husband of, it'll be 50 years this month, actually, my honey, was putting in a tile floor in our dining room at the time. And he said, "Hun, you don't bend, you stoop." And he got me ready for the position. And 2 years later, I figured, well, this is something I don't want to really do for the rest of my life. So I did bid on another office position and then kind of grew through the ranks of Pan American and went on from there into management, into personnel. And 2 years before Pan American went out of business, I bid on a job. Actually, I interviewed for a job with Evergreen Airlines and became their director of personnel for 2 years. Not my cup of tea, so now for 27 years I'm known as the airport matchmaker. My program is funded by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its airline partners, and administered by the Aviation Development Council. And I promote economic development in Queens. When the Queensborough president was served a New York bagel made in New Jersey, she said, "Hey, what's wrong with this?" So we reach out to businesses that surround Kennedy and LaGuardia Airport and try to get the airlines to get that. You know, there's the noise pollution, the air pollution, the traffic. Even though the aviation business is the second largest employer in Queens County, those negatives exist. And we just try to give back to all the neighboring businesses, so it's been a joy. I wouldn't trade one day of my 51 years working at Kennedy with anyone. It's a joy. Yeah.
Do you find nowadays it's easier for women doing? I mean, you worked on the forklift and you worked your way up, but do you find it's easier for women? If so, what if not in any ways, like in management? You know, you were able to do that. Or women have it easier now to get into the business?
I've been known to have broken the glass ceiling in that category, and it was a struggle. There were a lot of adversities, but I believe it is a lot easier in today's day and age. And if you want to do it, ladies, you young ladies especially who are here, whatever you want to do your homework, study, and just do it, because in a lot of cases, we have to be twice as good as the men to make it. At least that's how it was back then, and it's a little easier, but we still have a long way to go.
Now, one thing which it's so funny, we have the theater people here. I wrote a column one time called "Theater People," and it's a different breed. But I agree with that also. But I also agree that if you can't do what you love for a living, then keep it as a passion. You know, you might still be working in a bank. How many people do we know that they're lawyers and accountants and judges and all sorts of, and housewives and whatever, but they're still in theater and they still sing and they do things on the side. Oh, here's a question I want to throw at you. Now, we know you were Miss Senior, in New York Senior America. If you didn't do any of that, what's your passion? What would you throw yourself into if you could right now? I know you did a heck of a dance for the competition.
Oh, all of my anxiety and everything is released in dancing. I wish I could dance every day of my life. I try. I'm living my life exactly the way I want to live my life.
That's great.
Doing everything I want. I wouldn't trade places with anybody on the face of the earth. I truly feel blessed, and I thank God every day for my blessings, and that's all I can say. It's great.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, that was an awesome segment. Let's get a